Welcome to this explainer. If your organization is just kicking off its journey with the TOGAF framework, well, you're exactly where you need to be. Today, we're tackling one of the biggest, most fundamental challenges in enterprise architecture. How do you actually guarantee a project succeeds before you've even designed a single piece of the solution? The secret sauce? It's all in the initiation. It's about setting the stage, aligning the business, and securing ironclad commitments. So today, we're exploring the chronological journey to architecture success by mastering Phase A, architecture vision.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our chronological roadmap for mastering Phase A. We'll quickly hit defining the vision, gathering inputs, assessing capabilities, developing the target architecture, and finally managing risks to secure approval.
All right, Section 1, defining the architecture vision. This is where our success story actually begins.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly where we are. See that bright yellow circle right at the top of the architecture development method, or ADM cycle? That's Phase A. It sits right after the preliminary phase, but crucially, right before we dive deep into the weeds of business, information systems, and technology architectures. It's the bridge. Everything else in the cycle completely depends on the vision you establish right here.
Let's look at the formal definition for a second. The architecture vision is a high-level, aspirational vision of the capabilities and business value to be delivered. Notice what's missing there? Yeah, there's no mention of servers or code or infrastructure. Because this vision, it's fundamentally about articulating business value and aspirations, not just rattling off a list of technical specs. I absolutely love this quote from the text. Enterprise architecture is a business capability. If you're a team new to enterprise architecture, you have to internalize this. We all kind of fall into this trap of treating architecture like it's a purely IT exercise, but it isn't. Each cycle of the ADM is a project that drives strategic business outcomes. It's literally a core capability of the business itself. Moving right along to Section 2, gathering essential project inputs. Listen, you can't build a compelling vision without the right raw materials. It all kicks off with the request for architecture work. That's the document that lands on your desk and triggers the whole shebang. You also need your existing business principles, goals, and drivers. Then you pull in your architectural inputs, your organizational model, your tailored framework, and a populated architecture repository. Oh, and here's a quick pro tip. Tap into the TOGAF library here. It's a goldmine of proven, ready-to-use assets that will massively accelerate your project right out of the gate. Section 3, assessing capabilities and scope. This is all about clearing those early hurdles. So, the first part of our Phase A journey breaks down into 4 sequential steps. First, establish the project. Second, identify your key stakeholders, figure out their concerns, and nail down those business requirements. Third, confirm the overarching goals and any strict constraints, like time or budget. And fourth, evaluate capabilities. Doing this early on, figuring out if your enterprise actually has the skills, processes, and tools to even develop this architecture is exactly what saves you from a massive failure down the line. Which brings up a really critical question. Is your enterprise actually ready to change? Seriously, a massive percentage of business transformations fail, not because of bad tech, but because of culture. You could design the most elegant architecture in the world, but if the organization isn't ready to digest it, it's going nowhere. We have to evaluate and quantify the organization's readiness before we fully commit to the vision. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the scoping strategy. Every architect knows you have to define the scope, right? But the secret to mastering Phase A is explicitly documenting what is strictly outside your scope boundaries. By clearly defining the specific domains and timeframes you are not focusing on, you build this impenetrable wall against scope creep. All right, Section 4, developing the target architecture, the creative climax of our journey. Picking up our sequence, once the scope is locked in, we confirm and elaborate on our architecture principles. Setting these firm rules of the road naturally leads us right into creating that high-level architecture vision. This is also the perfect time to think about incremental adoption strategies, figuring out how the business can achieve value in stages rather than waiting for one giant rollout. Finally, we define the target architecture value propositions and the KPIs that will actually prove we've delivered what the business wants. So, we need to build a high-level view of both the baseline architecture, where we are today, and the target architecture, where we're going. Why does this matter so early on? Well, the baseline is usually described at a much higher level of abstraction in this phase, and that's actually an incredibly strategic move. It frees up your time to focus on specifying the target architecture in just enough detail to win over your stakeholders.
Finally, Section 5, Managing Risks and Securing Approval, the last chapter where we protect the vision we've built.
Look, business transformation is risky. There's no way around it. To protect the project, we have to categorize risk twice. First is the initial level of risk, basically how catastrophic a risk is before we do anything about it. Then there's the residual level of risk, what's left over after we apply our mitigating actions. Showing your stakeholders that you've methodically crushed that risk profile is exactly how you prove this transformation is safe and achievable.
And here we are at the finish line of the initiation phase. Step 10 is that formal identification of risks and mitigations we just talked about. Then, step 11, this is where it all comes together. We develop the statement of architecture work and secure its approval. All your plans, resource estimates, metrics, and tailored communication strategies are neatly packaged up with a bow for executive review.
So the crucial point is really this collection of final deliverables. You generate your capability assessment, your tailored framework, your central architecture vision document, and a comprehensive communications plan. But the absolute crown jewel, the approved statement of architecture work. Once your corporate sponsor signs off on that document, it becomes the official green light, the mandate that allows the rest of the architecture development method to actually proceed. I want to read this quote directly from the standard because it just hits the nail on the head. Without this consensus, it is very unlikely that the final architecture will be accepted by the organization as a whole. Think about it. Every single chronological step we just went through, from mapping stakeholder concerns to evaluating readiness to setting KPIs, it was all ultimately just an exercise in building that required consensus. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. Without consensus and without a signed statement of architecture work, will your final architecture ever actually be accepted? The answer, as we've seen throughout this explainer, is almost certainly no. Mastering Phase A isn't just about drawing diagrams. It is about doing the hard, necessary work to align the business and guarantee your project's success before you ever design a single solution. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep structuring your approach, and I'll catch you in the next one.